it's just such a lovely thing. I was thinking it's an ideal rose for using for wonderful table decorations or for wedding flowers, or if you want to. It must be 30 feet by 15. So it's pretty small, to be honest, but I've crammed a lot in. I've got 5 trees in it as well. Sorbus, Crataegus prunifolia. I've got 2 sorbus actually. I've got Cladrastus.
I daren't say it.
Go on.
That's the size of my drawing room.
There we are. My garden is the same size as your drawing room. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to episode 85 of Talking Dirty. Over at East Ruston Old Vicarage, a vision of sunshine himself is Alan Edward Herbert Gray, our happy and very handsome horticulturalist.
And you're looking lovely and leafy in Norwich, Miss Thordis Maria Sophia Fredrickson, with your wonderful smile. Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. We are smiling because we're welcoming some of our favourites back to Talking Dirty. It's been a while since we caught up with Sue and Bleddyn Wynn-Jones of the fabulous and inimitable Crûg Farm plants. And we join you at rather a good week because, Sue, you've just had a fabulous birthday celebration.
Yeah, I reached the big 7-0 yesterday.
You're looking pretty fantastic on it.
Thank you.
So how does a big birthday celebration shape up at Crûg?
Well, we had a quiet event. There's too much going on at the moment, but it was lovely. It was very special. Had special friends, so very nice evening. Some fine food and some very fine wine. So it was lovely.
I quite like combining them, just to sort of find woo.
Yeah.
And do you kind of treat yourself to, I don't know, a relaxing moment in the garden or a walk somewhere, or is it all just action until dinner?
Well, had you been here last night, we had gales and torrential rain, and we actually had to light a fire. So
free irrigation.
Yeah. I mean, I had planned champagne on the lawn, but it didn't happen, unfortunately.
Mind you, I mean, a little bit of rain. It's been nice to have a few showers after a very dry spring.
Oh, that was a really good dollop last night, wasn't it?
It's been very, very dry here, very dry. But it seems to be the norm these days. We seem to be having lots of dry springs.
Yeah,
exactly. We have here in East Norfolk, Northeast Norfolk, we've had, well, and it happened on Monday, we had 0.1 of an inch. And that's all we've had in the last 6 weeks.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Maybe you've got deeper soil than us, but we're starting to lose trees, even at this time of year.
Yeah, well, I haven't noticed anything serious yet.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Mm.
Well, apart from the trials and tribulations of rainfall or lack thereof, how has life treated you since we last caught up? We were hoping to
Wales,
do a bit of a winter show and tell, but time always gets away from us. We're always so busy. But I mean, it looks like your show and tell is resplendent. We've got
plenty to show today. Yeah, and we've got through COVID. We're fully recovered. So. Onwards and upwards.
Yeah, people don't hear all the stuff behind the scenes. There have been times when we've wanted to catch up with you, but there have been storms.
I know.
COVID has struck you down. Fingers crossed. All of that behind us now.
Yeah. Onwards and upwards. Yeah.
So, what would you like to kick us off with, show and tell wise?
What, this one?
I thought I'd start with something I've cut from the garden. Rodgersia podophyllum. I'm sure everybody's familiar with that, but this is one we found in the north of Honshu on one of our trips, and this is the color the leaves come out. They keep this for about a month. We call it Crûg Colossus. It's Rodgersia podophyllum. And the reason we call it Colossus is because it goes enormous. The leaves are at least a meter across when they're fully expanded.
Right.
This is just a young emerging one.
And it's, if you're listening to the audio version, this colour it holds on to for a month is a really deep, rich, plummy kind of colour. It looks like there's a nice sheen to the leaves as well.
Yeah, it's quite mahogany. There's a lot of red in it. Certainly what I can see on the screen, it's got more blue in it than it normally has. But the other thing about that we found with our wild collected Rodgersia podophyllums is that they flower. There's not many forms that you'll see in cultivation that flower. We've got 2 collections in addition to this one. Notice this is throwing plenty of flowers up as well. That we see as many flowers as any other Rodgersia. And I think this species is well known for not flowering, especially in a garden.
So win-win.
Yeah.
That one's getting a bit of a wilt now. And the other thing I took a snippet of, you'll recognise this, of course.
Actinidia?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kolomikta, just starting to turn pink.
Yeah.
In this part of the country. But what you buy in a garden centre won't have these flowers on them. I don't know whether you can see it.
I can, yeah. Well, I used to have a form of that many years ago that used to flower very well. And then we changed that area of garden. It got lost. And so I don't know what happened to it. But...
Well, yeah, they all flower well, as long as they're not too dense. But the fruit is starting to form on this already.
Oh, gosh.
But what you find in the garden centre, they're all male, which is ridiculous. I remember reading this up several years ago now. It was introduced in, was it 1825 or was it 1850? I can't remember off the top of my head. From Sakhalin, which is now part of Russia, north of all the Japanese islands. It used to be included in Japan in those days. It's part of Japan. So really bone hardy, and it was imported for the fruit.
Really?
Yes. And it was grown in gardens in this country for fruit for years. Is the
fruit actually like a Chinese gooseberry then?
Yes, it's a small fruit. And it's ripe at the end of August. It's the first one to ripen. You don't see much of it because it doesn't travel very well. They're quite soft.
Which is why you won't see it anywhere.
Yeah. But it's a lovely thing to have in the garden, and it's the really sweet fruit to it.
Do you need a pollinator?
Well, what we did was to go out and collect our own fruit from the wild and then select a male and a female.
I see.
And the female's called Tomoko, after a great Japanese friend of ours. and we also have a male clone.
And what's he called?
Yeah, Yamazaki.
Yamazaki?
Yeah, he lives on Yakushima Island.
Tomoko and Yamazaki. Well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and the other thing is that I noticed the RHS actually put a photograph of Actinidia kolomikta on the front of one of their magazines. I can't remember if it was The Garden or the Plantsman, as it was called at those times. But the caption read, "Only suitable for south-facing walls." And it's from Sakhalin. It's -20 in its stride.
Oh, dear.
Oh, it's not -30, actually.
Well... I mean, it's that old adage again, isn't it? Plants can't read books.
Oh, exactly.
And the stupid people that write therein.
Yeah.
So do you want to carry on the climbers theme?
Right. So I bought, we do an awful lot with aerial rooting climbers. I mean, climbers is one of our things, basically because we had such an old garden, there was loads of places for climbers and not much else. One of the things I discovered with aerial rooting climbers, that it's very difficult to get them to stick to the walls, to climb up the walls. And a chap who was working here at the time said, well, haven't you tried this system? It's a bit complicated to explain.
You like that?
So you might get bored, you might fall to sleep by the time I've finished. Well, I always recommend getting the plant like this rather than on a stick.
Yep.
It's fine having them growing on a stick to keep them out of trouble. They snap quite easily. They're fairly flimsy. What we do is we get a plant like this, dig a hole, obviously, for the roots, and then you plant it 30 centimetres away from the wall if you want to keep metric.
Parallel to the wall?
No, the actual roots, main roots.
Yeah,
and then you run these long stems parallel to the wall at least 15 centimetres away from the wall, and you bury them.
So peg them down.
Bury them. No, don't peg them down. You bury them.
Right.
You just have the growing tips, the tiny leaves here.
Yeah.
Sticking out of the ground, so they can photosynthesize. Then what you'll find is, like you see ivy growing in a forest. That's what you're trying to mimic. They will send up a shoot and it'll creep along the ground. And you'll get what I call terrestrial roots from those. And as soon as it hits the wall, it gets aerial roots. and it goes up like a rocket. I reckon you can save a minimum of 3 years by doing that.
Oh, that's terrific.
It's a really good tip, actually. Yeah.
We put in Saxifraga integrifolia. I don't know whether you've planted that.
Yeah. Hydrangea relative.
Yeah, it's quite notorious of being slow.
Yeah.
Well, 3 years, it was up 20-foot wall. So you put the work in at the beginning, and it's very rewarding.
What an amazing tip!
Yeah.
I feel jaws on floors from our Talking Dirty viewers and listeners.
And not one of us went to sleep.
Well, it also works with Parthenocissus, anything that's aerial rooting.
It's a really good tip, because they look so ugly on a little stick, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Well, if you put them on a stick, the wind, any breeze will just sort of move it sideways, and it won't be able to stick. But you've got to get it growing along the ground first. And they know where the walls are. Don't worry about that. They can sniff them out. Well, it's natural instinct, isn't it? I mean, it's looking for something vertical.
Yeah.
That is wonderful.
You think they've got eyes sometimes. There they are. They go straight for the wall. Never had a problem with that. And then you've got the base of your plant is at least 1 meter or even 2 meters if you go the trouble of growing it long first.
Bleddyn, what's the name of the plant you're holding?
That was the next one. my next bit. This particular climbing hydrangea is endemic to an island called Ulleungdo in Korea. It's almost up into North Korea. It's about 80 kilometers offshore, and it is called petiolaris, but variety megaphylla, and everything is mega on it.
Yeah.
The foliage is larger, the plant is larger, and the inflorescences are larger, which is why we collected it.
This sounds like an Alan Gray plant.
And it's good for north-facing walls, because you're virtually on the northern limit of this particular species, Hydrangea petiolaris.
Yeah, so we've got it on the outside the office.
So we've got it on the north-facing wall. There's also a wonderful Saxifraga from the same island. But we're a bit slow on being able to reproduce that.
What a stunner. So yeah, I saw Alan's face light up. He does like larger things.
This is just an ordinary one, isn't it? Or was it? Yeah, this is just ordinary petiolaris. So you can see that the difference in size of foliage.
Yeah.
Now this is a seedling. Now juvenile foliage is always a lot smaller. And this is what we see, again, we see it in the wild. The same as ivy. These stems have evolved to grow along the ground first, as I was saying. So that then you get a branch going that way and a branch going that way, and you'll get a meter sheet going up the wall rather than a single stem.
Yeah.
You might get 20 stems out of something like that. Yeah. So you've got 20 plants on the go.
These are those moments that I feel like Talking Dirty exists for, these revelations that can make such a difference.
Well, I think this is...
Who's next?
It would be wise to go on to this with the planting of this one.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Now, I'll have to send you a photograph of how we've planted this. I've been experimenting with dry shade.
Yeah.
And this is an evergreen Polygonatum that we find in Vietnam, which I can never pronounce properly. Mengtzense. And this form is form of tonkinensis, because it has dark stems, purple. I don't know whether you can see the coloration. And the flowers will even turn quite reddish as well. This is last year's stem, still there. A lot of the plants that we've got in the ground have still got the fruit on them. This has been grown inside, of course, so it's a bit more advanced. It's dropped its fruit. So, but it's wonderful. You've got the flowers in the current year, and you'll get the fruit from the previous year. It's a really good combination.
And a lovely dark flush, like you said, to the new foliage, and the usual beautiful arching habit as well. It's really pretty.
Do you ever take the fruits off your plants, such as the ones you're holding, and sow the seed?
Yes, but we've built up our stocks quite well now. But the trouble is, I mean, Polygonatum seed you're talking about the best part of 10 years by the time you've got a decent plant.
Yeah.
Wow.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
So they're epiphytes, especially this particular, the former tonkinensis. And they grow up almost to the summit of Phan Xipang, which is the highest mountain in northern Vietnam, which is well over 3,000 meters. And that makes it hardy virtually anywhere in this country, because even in Sapa, which is the town at the base of the mountain at 1,600, that gets -8 quite regularly nowadays. So as soon as you go up the mountain, you're into quite cold areas during the winter. It is an area that's undergone glaciation. Right. So the hardiness is in the genes of all of these plants that we find in that area, which is why it's proving to be such a good area. So I'll eventually get around to it, how to plant the damn things. As I said, they're epiphytes. So when you see them growing on tree branches, the whole rhizome's out the ground. It's not buried at all. So I'm trying to mimic that. For instance, we are planting them right at the base of beech trees. We've got enormous beech trees here, and they're flourishing there. They just need a small pocket of soil to get enough moisture in the spring when they're growing to form, that's all. And they're working really well. And I've also got them on old railway sleepers. And then I put slates behind. So the rhizome is on the sleeper, and there's a break in the slate, so the roots can go through into the soil behind. And that's perfectly happy.
Amazing.
Local plants are growing like that. And there's several species that's worth trying like that. Lots of them are quite tropical. These green forms we also find they'll be slightly lower altitude, but they're equally as good. Maybe not quite as hardy for the coldest areas, but there's plenty hardy enough here everywhere. I've yet to lose one of these in the garden. And we do find these growing terrestrially as well. Obviously, with deforestation, they have to adapt, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely beautiful. That's got really large arching stems as well. Really, really beautiful, that one.
I've got some larger forms here.
And I find that when you plant them out, they're getting larger and larger. The small one there with the coloured foliage showing, some of those are now a metre tall.
Oh, wow.
It's great. Because they seem to be much happier outside than they are under protection. I can't remember if I've shown this one to you before. You can see it's a fairly tall plant. Disporopsis. I don't know if everybody knows the difference between Disporopsis and Polygonatums.
Please tell us.
Well, Disporopsis are all evergreen as opposed to summer evergreen. There's a slight difference in the flowers. I probably can't show you in close enough. Oh yeah, you can just about see it there.
Yeah.
Inside the flower is what they call a corolla.
Yeah.
The crown. You see, my Welsh comes in handy there. We call it coron, you see, in Welsh. But there's a corolla inside it. A Polygonatum doesn't have that. It just has the sort of bell flower there in a Polygonatum. Anyway, and this particular one is again from the same mountain. We found it. It was 2006, 2007 up there. They seem to like moist areas. I haven't noticed that they require a lot of moisture in the garden, but we've seen them growing quite wet places. This will make a metre tall, so it's quite a large species. And the rhizomes, which I can't show you because they're in here, are very distinct. They're described in the flora as being like a string of beads. So they fluctuate in thickness, in other words, quite rounded. And there's only a couple of species of Disporopsis that do that. So I can be 100% sure of the identity of this particular plant.
But again, they're evergreen, so they're.
Oh, you bought the one that's you see a lot in.
Yeah.
This is pernyi. Yes, it's in. You can't see it very well. You've got stuff behind.
I know. We've got lots of others, but they're not flowering just yet. It's a bit early.
Yeah, pernyi. Now, to me, pernyi gets rather a bad reputation for Disporopsis. We've planted it out in the garden next to other species, and the slugs can actually pick them out. It's like caviar to them. Unless you've got them somewhere that's really well protected from slugs, we find if we've got a lot of bare ground somewhere, it works really well because it's too far for them to go in open ground. But if you mix it in with dense vegetation, the slugs will have them in no time. It's amazing how they can pick them out.
It is amazing. This happens to my little violet, the like freckles.
Yeah.
That seems to be like caviar in my garden. When I go out on slug watch, it'll have at least 5 slugs trying to devour it.
Yeah, and I haven't seen many of the other ones getting hit by slugs.
In fact, we've had quite a few designers around recently, and we've gone into the woods, and Bleddyn's mentioned Disporopsis to me. Oh, I'm not interested in Disporopsis. And we go into the woods, and we've got large clumps of them, and they go running up to us and say, oh, I like this. Well, that's
What's this called? Disporopsis. What do you?
Okay. Should we do a Disporum, or do you want?
Should we try Roscoea? Have many people shown Roscoeas? You familiar with them?
I'm familiar with them, but not at this time of the year.
Well, these are the only ones that are flowering at the moment.
Well, cautleyoides is about the earliest one to start flowering.
Has that been undercover then? Because then
No. They're out in the bays. Yeah.
We've got several of them. A lot of them are named. What's it? We've got Rainier.
Yeah.
And Jeffrey Thomas.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Is it Jeffrey Thomas that has the very pale, almost white flowers? They're out now for us, and it's a larger flower. And then they're very promiscuous. So it's hybridized. I think this is with Australis, which is I don't know. That's quite a late flowering one, Australis. So I don't know how that's happened. But yeah, we've had a nice patch of this come up, and it's a different colour.
Is that two-tone? It's hard to
yes, it is.
Yeah.
The top there is much paler.
So a sort of pale lilac top and then a darker purple bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are the only two that are flowering at the moment, but you'll get lots.
Well, this has got coutleyoides in it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
As well as being promiscuous, do they self-seed incontinently?
They will.
They will.
Yes. And this is the trouble. We've got beds out in our fields. I marked out an acre patch once upon a time for putting a lot of these gingers in. Got our propagator at the time to collect the seed off each one and then bulk them up in order to be able to put them back into the beds again. But she mixed up the labels, didn't she?
Oh!
We've not been able to sort them out since.
Times 57.
Which is why we're getting hybrids. And it's a matter of opinion whether that's good or bad.
This is a great little saxifrage. Evergreen, will tolerate exceptionally dry conditions, and it just forms a mat and lovely little white flowers.
Saxifraga hirsuta.
It's a really good doer.
Evergreen foliage, of course.
Yeah.
On this, a bit like a London Pride.
Yeah. In fact, somebody's using it in Chelsea.
Are they?
Yeah, Charlie's using it. Yeah.
We were given it. Philip Brown, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He used to look after the gardens. He was the garden manager. Port Marion Gardens.
Yeah.
He did a lot in that garden. Really did a good job on it. And unfortunately, Philip's died now. Gone to this garden in the sky somewhere, knowing him. He was really keen. He used to be in the Botanic Gardens, Leicester, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was like a skimmer.
Did a lot of work with skimmer.
Yeah.
So he got me going with skimmers as well. Really interesting man.
I do love how not only, I mean, obviously a lot of us like to have associations with people and memories of plants, but I'm always astonished by you not only remembering the plant and maybe the people who gave it to you, but the places, the year you collected it, the altitude. It's a whole other level of memory that I don't think I'd be able to do.
Yeah.
There are
Well, they're
one or
like
two
cue
that-
cards, you know.
yeah, one or two that stick for me, but not as many as Bleddyn.
This one I got on my last trip in Vietnam. I don't know if you can make out it's a Mahonia. Everyone's familiar with Mahonias. But you see the tiny leaves on it. It's like a little palm tree, and there's nothing spiny about it.
I was going to say, is it prickly?
No, not. There's one spine which isn't particularly sharp on the tip. That's all. And it's a very small species. Would it be meter and a half? What I found in the wild, and had a huge head of fruit on it. So, that's a gift, isn't it? And they're doing very well for us. Roy Lancaster did write it up in one of the magazines. He loves Mahonias. He's absolutely bonkers about them. The plant he tried wasn't that hardy, so I've yet to put one outside. They seem to be fine what they've had so far.
Has it flowered yet?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, the usual long inflorescences, racemes of yellow flowers.
Yeah.
And a nice scent to boot. Here we are. One for you to talk about, dear.
Well, with the Jubilee coming up, I thought little Geranium, Sanguinium, Jubilee Pink. It's looking a little bit washed out after last night's rain, but you'll get continuous flowering for right through the summer, really. Great little plant.
Well, natives, aren't they?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see it growing all over Anglesey.
What did you call it again?
Jubilee Pink.
Jubilee Pink.
Geranium Sanguinium Jubilee Pink.
Yeah, they got that bit.
That's lovely. We do love a good doer, particularly in a small garden. I love a plant that will perform.
We're going to have Rodgersias again.
Hey.
You put these things. Oh, this is... I can't remember if we've featured this one before. Now, I can give the history of this one as well if you want.
Oh, yes, please. I love it. It's like a journey back in time, around the world. We get all of it.
There's not much relief on this yet.
No, they're just starting to show.
This
is nepalensis. You don't see an awful lot of it in cultivation. But again, Sue mentioned earlier, we get lots of designers coming through here. And once you see this fully grown, they're knocked over by it.
It is fantastic.
It is very different from the other species. I found this growing it was over 3,000 meters on the border of Nepal with Tibet, a really cold area. And it was quite wet. Now the plants, just the foliage, were 2 meters tall.
Ooh.
And the huge leaves. So, I mean, you can really, if you go to town on something like this, you can get some wonderful looking plants. It's quite a greenish yellow inflorescence on it.
Bleddyn, when you say go to town, could you put that into
feeding it loads of humus in the ground and plenty of moisture.
Right.
I mean, this was growing in running water virtually.
Right. Yeah.
In the wild.
It's not good for somebody with a 19 feet water table then. And
something like that. I can give you some old plastic for a sheet to go underneath it if you want.
Mind you, Alan, you did say you wanted to create some sort of stream, so maybe you just need to go big.
Well, it's a good way of recycling plastic.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, wonderful foliage. I mean, lovely pinnate leaves again. Now then, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I got this from Sichuan, China, of course. Now, this would have been growing with Illicium simonsii.
Yeah.
And a lovely geranium that hardly anybody knows called Christensonianum. Have you come across that?
No.
It's a bit like a white flowering Geranium procurrens.
Right, yeah.
So a scrambling species.
Late flowering.
Very late.
Yeah.
It starts around about August, September.
Yeah, but it's lovely.
And it goes on till Christmas.
Well, that's very useful because our autumns are becoming more benign, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, it'll take the cold. That's not a problem coming from the altitude it does.
Yeah.
And it was growing on almost what they call schist. It's loads of broken down rock.
Yeah, like shadow.
Yeah, a very steep ground. That's where the Illicium Simonsi, have you grown it?
I've got an Illicium, but I don't know which one it is.
It's the yellow one. Yellow.
Mine is cream.
Well, yeah, could well be.
I think that the coloration is somewhat climatic.
It came from you, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you've probably got Simonsii then, unless you've had it recently and it's macranthum.
No, it's about 6-7 years ago.
Oh, it'll be Simonsii.
Right.
It'll be Simonsii.
Yeah, for us, they start flowering in February.
Right.
And they can have a wonderful scent, although I can't say the scent was that good on them this year. But normally, it's got a wonderful scent, especially when you get into March.
Yeah.
You need to sight them in a little bit of sun to get that scent, though. Now, sambucifolia. Yes, I had a boffin coming here. I daren't mention any names. On Rodgersias. He said, it can't be Rodgersia sambucifolium. You can always tell sambucifolium. It has 11 leaflets.
Yeah.
And he started to count them. And then all of a sudden he got to 11 and he went, oh. And we grow this, you'll be interested to know, in very dry.
Hey.
We've got it on solid slate.
Oh, in fact, I posted a picture the other week on Instagram. Yeah, and people and showed it growing on
slate chipping.
Yeah, very dry. Yeah.
We had a fire here. There's an old barn burnt down. And the biggest problem was to get rid of the old slate roof. So we just bulldozed it all to one side, and it's a big heap. And we planted this all over it. And it thrives in it. But if it does get really hot and dry, it can suffer. So it's best maybe in a part shade in it.
That's Crug Cardinal.
Well, Crug Cardinal is a Pinnata that's it's very similar to Pinnata superba. But yeah, it's darker, isn't it? That's another one that we selected really early on. It's not one of our collections. It's a selection from cultivation. No flowers. I don't know. We're missing flowers today.
I've got flowers. I've got flowers.
We've just talked about Illicium, Sue. While we're on the subject, it's right in the back. I'm afraid it's going to take a minute. It's a Vietnamese species and we've got loads of collections of it. You see it all over that northern part of Vietnam. I don't know if I can get it in here. It's like a Christmas tree at the moment.
Oh, look.
Gorgeous. Merrillianum. It's very, very variable. Lovely plant. Always flowers in time for Chelsea. We managed to show a decent plant of it on our stand there one year.
I like that. That's lovely.
Red. The different collections we've got, some of them open quite wide, others are stay tightly closed. But it's a very primitive, talking evolutionary terms, plant. This used to be in the same family as Schisandra, Cadzura, and even Magnolia. They're closer.
Yeah.
All these quite primitive plants, although not very primitive because they do have. Do you call them sepals on these or petals? I can't remember.
So we'll do a few flowers.
Oops.
I mean, that one you said it looked like a Christmas tree, and if you're listening to the audio version, it's because it has all these from a distance. They look like little red baubles.
Yeah.
They're marvelous.
Yeah, and then you'll end up with the star-shaped seed heads afterwards. Star anise is an Illicium. I managed to collect that once as well, but it's quite tropical. One has to be careful not to be tempted to use any of the other species though, because they're all poisonous. Apart from the star anise, which, as I said, is quite tropical. I've got a couple of seedlings on the go here, but it's very slow because we're not hot enough for it. Found it growing in these lower elevation, more in the coastal areas of Vietnam. This is Euphorbia donii. There seem to be about 101 species from the Himalayas. They look very similar.
I love this acidic green.
Yeah. It's such a great foil at this time of year. I mean, walking around East Ruston, you get that similar kick from Smyrnium epifoliatum, and it's just absolutely perfect to offset all the plants.
That disappeared here for us. I couldn't get it going.
Well, never go to East Ruston because you'll be so jealous. It's everywhere.
Oh, it must be the heat. You've got the red stems as well, and that's lovely. Oh, gosh, coming thick and fast now. Who we got? I'm sure everybody will be familiar with this one. Lavellii. What's the other species? Well, Rivillaris, yeah. Very similar. You've got these coloured backs to the flowers. These are all coming up all over the place here. Oh. Again, it's fairly variable. I've got collections of this as well found in China. Some of them enormous white ones. Oops, we're swapping flowers again. Back to Woody. I'm sure you recognise this as a styrax.
Yeah, snowdrop tree.
Yeah. This is one of the forms of Formosanna. So that's from the species that, the main species that grows on Taiwan.
And our japonica is about to come and it's laden with flowers.
Our japonica, Styrax japonica, does really well here.
It's got such a sort of magical fairy-like quality about it.
Yeah. It is incredible to stand underneath it. It just looks absolutely fantastic.
Who was here the other day? They said that they're growing Styrax japonica and it's never flowered for them. I mean, ours are absolutely smothered in white flowers. It might need a bit of sunflower. I was going to mention myanthemums, but unfortunately, most of them have finished. This lot of myanthemums have finished so far. We can get some enormous ones. It's one of the Central American species.
Which one is that?
Salvinii is the best name that we can come up with for it. We've got Salvinii. What's the other one there? Flexuosa is another one, but Flexuosa differs to this stem that runs through the inflorescence is zigzagged on.
That's a very graceful looking plant, I have to say.
Yeah, we've exhibited quite a few forms of these in the London shows over the years. They've done very well. Some of the species have enormous inflorescences on them. Yeah, but what surprised us was, our main expedition to go and find them was in 2004, wasn't it? Central America.
Panama.
We started off in Mexico and all the way down to Panama. In Panama, we were finding 2-meter tall plants growing as epiphytes, so 20 meters up in the trees. Unbelievable. They were just hanging there. You can imagine the job we were getting to collect the seed off them.
Guatemala too.
Yeah. The interesting thing was that by the time we got through all of them, that was our second trip to do it. But the main collections were on this second trip. We got nearly 35, I think it was, different species and varieties of myanthemum. Whereas previous to that, textbooks were telling us that there's only 2 species in the Americas.
So where does that want to be in the garden?
Well, I've got it growing in very steep shade. So it wants some overhead protection so it doesn't freeze too hard in the winter. So we're actually growing it under yew trees.
But it's quite nice to have it raised on a bank so you can look up to it.
Can I
Are we
hear
there?
you? I can hear you.
Well done.
I can't see you yet, but I can hear you.
Choose virtual background. What's this?
You want to open that?
Well, I've just clicked this bloody thing and then nothing's happened.
You've got it closed. Start. Open it.
You're such a great double act, even if I can't see you.
Hello. 2 friends for dinner, who one of them I share a birthday with, and
did you marinate them?
Yeah. But I had cake.
Good and proper, and one was driving, so she didn't get too marinated. Good morning, Alan.
Good morning. How are you?
Hi.
That's a lovely note to come in on.
Well, simultaneous drinks of drink.
Yeah, I've got my coffee.
I'm missing out here.
Hello and welcome. Hello and welcome to episode.
Calm down.
Too much excitement.
Oh no.
I've probably got a little bit of alcohol in my system still from last night.